Hello everyone, my name is Łukasz Malinowski, the Internet of Things advisor and trainer. And today I will talk with you about the business models that we can use in IoT startups, how to define them, and what are some challenges when designing those models. Before we start, please say hi in chat so I know that at least one person is listening and I'm not speaking to myself. Today's meeting is going to be a bit different than the previous one because you won't be able to see the timer on the screen because I've got the presentation instead of diagrams, but I will start the timer on my side to keep myself in check and on schedule. So hopefully this session will be interesting for you. It won't be as technical as some of my previous content, though the technology on its own is not that relevant when you cannot figure out the business model that you want to use in your specific case. That's why I decided to focus on the business side of IoT, not only on the technology, because this is something extremely important. Okay, so let's start the timer and start with something that is extremely important, which is the spoiler alert. And the spoiler alert is that starting an IoT initiative requires significant upfront investment. You basically need to secure some capital before you can actually start your IoT initiative. And this is just a fact. And please be aware of that. Please remember that. And one of the reasons why you need capital is that IoT spans across multiple domains and multiple competencies. So you need to ensure that your connectivity and IoT backend infrastructure is properly designed and properly implemented, and that the backend system for IoT and connectivity is totally different than the backend that you use for your end users and the software that you expose directly to your end users, which is very, very important. Those are two different skill sets that you need to have to operate your solution. Of course, when we are speaking about the Internet of Things, you need to have the hardware and the firmware. You can purchase hardware and adjust it to your needs, or you can design brand new solution your own. You can, depending on specific product, you need to choose the proper path, and firmware is essentially the logic that you will put on that device. Finally, security. This is a topic that sometimes is forgotten by the founders, and they want to add security on top later on. So that never works. And security should be built in your design from the very beginning. Without security embedded into the design and the framework that you are building, you will encounter some challenges that might be devastating for you in the future. And all of those skills are mandatory to design and build an IoT solution. And if you decide to buy them from the market, they are pretty costly. So some founders decide that they will build those skills internally, which is totally valid approach, though you need to remember that learning takes time and time equals money. So this is the trade-off that you need to make, whether you invest money to obtain required skill set from the market or you invest money to learn and build those skills in-house. Let's say that you solve this puzzle and you've got exciting hardware prototype that you are ready to show to the customers and basically earn money, because this is the main goal of creating any IoT solution. I've got yet another spoiler alert for you. The hardware units are expensive before you reach sufficient scale. And this is actually a trap that a few companies I know are in, that they've got really solid solution really solid hardware offering, but for various reasons they were not able to scale yet, and that's why the cost of a unit is still high. That impacts their margins, and sometimes that um, permits them from offering this solution to customers that are not able to pay that premium price for a unit. So this is also something that you need to be aware of. And once you cover all of your initial expenses, you've got the skill set, you've got the hardware, you are ready to proceed further, which is you need to predict your operational costs. And predicting operational costs ain't easy because there are a number of various costs that are included into the IoT system and IoT offering. So first of all, we've got the connectivity costs, right? So your device needs to somehow send data, send telemetry data it gathers to the backend system. Typically, when you are a startup, you create your backend system using some kind of cloud offering, because building data center from scratch takes a lot of money, a lot of time, and probably this is not the best way to start. So if you use cloud resources, you pay for those resources accordingly to the usage. But sometimes the usage is very hard to predict. So basically, you do not know your expenses upfront, which is a pretty significant challenge, and that's why having a secured budget to cover your running expenses is so critical in IoT solutions. Then we've got the end user support, and this is something that few of founders that I worked with actually forgot, that after you sell your offering to your end users, you need to somehow support it. So this is very, very important, and you can adjust the way that you support your end users based on the approach, and we will talk about it briefly in the next slides. Finally, we've got consumption model. That basically means the way how end users interact with your service or product and how much of resources they consume. By resources, I mean the connectivity and the cloud infrastructure. So this is very, very important. And when you're just starting, it's pretty hard to predict how the end users will actually use your product. So that brings us to the conclusion that predicting running costs is extremely tricky task, and you need to make your best guess based on the experience and to be aware that this is not a strict science and you might be wrong and you need to adjust in the future. Okay, we covered some very critical things that you need to be aware of before even starting the IoT business. Let's say that you succeeded and you are ready to think about your business model because you solve all the previous puzzles. Most of startups that contact me use one of those free models. So I decided to give you a short summary of how they look. First, we've got the fixed priced approach. Typically for a product, so basically you sell product on a given price. Then we've got a subscription offering, and subscription is very popular nowadays. Though I'm not saying this is the best way to go. It's just one of the options. Finally, we've got value added services, which we will talk about in a second. Let's start with the fixed price approach. So the end user typically covers the connectivity fees because you sell the product, and that is end of the journey and of the income for you. So you transfer as much costs as possible on the end user, and connectivity is one of examples. The backend expenses should be limited because after the initial money, you are basically starting to losing because of the ongoing costs, and that's why you want to narrow down the functionalities exposed to the end users that interact with the cloud backend. Finally, probably in this model, you would like to push the self-service support option as much as possible, once again, to minimize your running costs. So to summarize, you will initially earn because you sell a product at the, let's say, full price, but then you start losing money in the long run because all of the aspects that I covered. And that means that your task is to convince people to buy new products for you. Because when they buy new product, you earn money. This is as simple as it is. Uh, let's move to the subscription. In the subscription-based offering, typically the connectivity fees are included in the subscription. That doesn't have to be this case for everyone, but that's the most typical option. And the main challenge is the usage patterns, because you don't know how much people will use your application and your backend. But because of the nature of subscription, you want to make them use it as much as possible to keep them engaged with the offering and basically to pay you monthly on or yearly subscriptions. And when we speak about subscription model, typically we've got support tiers. So depending on the needs of the end customers, they can purchase a support that meets their requirements. So to summarize, the subscription-based model is depends on you innovating to keep your customers on the platform, because in this model you actually earn in the long run, and this is the opposite of the fixed price solution. When you lose in the long run, using subscriptions, you will earn in the long run, provided that, of course, your cost estimations are correct. If your cost estimations are not correct, then obviously you are not earning money. But that's not the issue with the business model. It's issue regarding the cost estimations. And then we've got the value added services, which is kind of a mix of the fixed price and subscription models. In a nutshell, you can have one or more one-time purchases and or subscriptions, and the initial payment is optional. So you can think of it as you uh, give even the product for free, and that product we've got some kind of functionality that is attractive to the end user, but the goal is to keep people entertained and to make them willing to pay for the premium. And by premium, I mean for the one-time functionalities that they can unlock in this product, for instance, or to purchasing some subscriptions. So this is the whole idea of the value added services model. And there are a few important assumptions that you need to be aware before starting the IoT company. First of all, security and privacy incident will kill your brand. So the trust is priceless, and we all know that the well-established brands got hacked. But if you are just starting your business, and if someone will compromise your solution and exploit data, then that will kill your brand. So adding security later on is not a good idea. You should really include it from the very beginning. The next assumption is that every sold product or service should maintain or increase your margins. And I had that discussion with a few people on LinkedIn that every product actually decrease your margins. And I don't agree with that. If you've got proper design for scale, then every sold product or service should maintain or increase your margin, and this is the way that you will earn money, yeah, in the long run. Finally, you need to design your system as good as possible from the very beginning, because rebuilding the infrastructure is way more expensive later on than investing in solid design from the very beginning. Because when you need to change a system that is already operational and got real users, that is always a huge risk. This is very error prone and might impact the end user experience. So that's all that I prepared for you today. I hope that you found this meeting interesting. I hope it showed you on what aspects of the IoT business you should put attention to before starting your IoT journey. I wish you a great day. Until next time. My name is Łukasz Malinowski and I'm the Internet of Things advisor and trainer.